Welcome, welcome. No, this is not a live about masculine energy. It's going to be about power. And I created this amazing AI figure of a very masculine male. I want you to look at his eyes. That's why I love doing lives on TikTok, because I can't do this with YouTube. And sometimes the art that I create, I'm not really creating it. I'm just putting words together, and this is what they spit out when I put it together. I want you to look at the eyes that is looking back at you, the eyes of a tiger, the eyes of a conqueror, the eyes of someone who will always get up, that will never die on his knees or her knees. And there are women and men who have that look, right? And who have that fierce, savage passion to change the world and make it better. And I want you to know that what we're dealing with right now in our country, and probably throughout the Western world, is we have been given through nepotism. Because what is nepotism? How is it controlled? Well, through the billionaire class, the trillionaire billionaire class. And why? Why is this harmful to us? Well, you saw what happened to Nikola Tesla. He died a broken man. He had the eye of a tiger. He had the eyes of a philosopher, poet, genius that was broken by the system. We should never celebrate Edison. Edison was an evil man who stole a lot of these inventions and literally created a propaganda poster that he was the inventor of light. There was also a black man that worked with him, and I forgot. I never prepare for this live, but the live that came up immediately as I was watching a supposed journalist interview a person of influence, and I was looking at how this girl was comporting herself at CNN, and I was like, how the fuck did she get the job? There's no fucking way she outdid 20 classified, intelligent, highly educated, philosophical journalists who want the truth, who seek the truth. There's no way she outdid them in the interview. She was placed there. She was given the 7-figure job because daddy knows or golfs with another person's daddy. At CNN, ABC, Herald Tribune, whatever newspaper or magazine. There was a time when in Los Angeles, you could actually write a synopsis or actually write a pitch and make a deal at a cocktail, on a cocktail napkin, and basically pitch yourself in the 70s. In the 70s, the stars that most of them were coming out of World War II, some of these guys like Robert Mitchum, not Robert Mitchum, I think he was in World War II, but I remember he was famous or infamous for smoking, what? And that actually put him on a map as a star, because he was like the sexy, gorgeous bad boy who got caught with grass. And so we still, in the 1920s, 30s, we still had stars, people who were definitely controlled by the fucking machine, controlled by a certain sect of people, but we still had fucking talent. They weren't just good looking, by the way, with no surgery, but they were fucking talented. James Dean comes to mind. Today, we're probably losing countless James Dean. We're probably losing countless Nikola Teslas. We're losing the most brilliant minds of our century. There was a time when actors could actually, during the 90s, come out like Heath Ledger coming out of Australia, right? Martin Chokoff coming out of New Zealand. You might not know his name, and why don't you, is the question. We started getting like Mel Gibson's coming out of, other countries. And then something stopped. And I saw it. I've been watching how the MTV generation created quasi-talented people. And now we're knowing that the rap scene was by design. by design. Some of them still came through, like Tupac, still like somehow, but he didn't live long, did he? So my point to you is now we're coming to the 21st century where we should be an age of the golden age of enlightenment, which we will. We're getting there. Don't get me wrong. But this is about nepotism. This is about people asking the right questions. Like, you may not like Tucker Carlson, but really, there's an old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Listen to some of these people. I listen to Nick Fuentes sometimes just to understand where he's coming from. Not because I fucking like the guy, but because I want to understand what he's saying. Why are people magnetically drawn to him? Okay? He's his own talent. And he's been beaten down for it, and for I hate to say it, for the right, some of his racist views and misogynistic views are fucking unhinged, but he's still his own person. And this is the last bastion. Content creators are being bought and paid for. I don't care if they're political content creators, I don't care if they're spiritual content creators, but even that is being, snakes are slithering through underneath the door to control those voices with money. Lots of it. $7,000 paid per post, things like that. But in the high branches, the nosebleed branches of success, like Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, who with every report we have was an absolute fucking the most boring man. He had nothing brilliant to say. His whole conversation was underage girls. Well, I mean, children. Let's say for what it is, they were children. I don't care if you're 17, you're still a kid. Like, you're still a kid. 4 years before you were 17, you were still playing with dolls, or you were playing with little pony toys or whatever the fuck kids play with in those days or today. So here was Jeffrey, little Jeff boy, who owned $1 million properties without having any talent, having a special office at the Harvard University, apparently a special office, supposedly teaching math that he couldn't even fucking understand. We're not talking about a beautiful mind here, nor are we talking about any other type of personality that would have been like the tortured genius that just were numbers and realities and concepts, and quantum physics just makes him suffer and he doesn't know what to do with all this angst. We're not talking about that. We're talking about your basic podunk pedestrian mind with a 14-year-old Neanderthal consciousness of thirsting for young flesh, right? And him being the biggest pimp in the planet, basically probably one of, because I'm sure he's been replaced by now, with his madam to his side, Ghislaine. So when you start opening the circle, when you go from the nucleus of these two people, Ghislaine and him, and her father, Maxwell, which I remember when he suddenly disappeared off his yacht, and how he came up with a bruised face, and somehow the story was that he fell off his yacht. Yeah, But anyway, you look around and you look at the nepotism. There was a time when we had 14 publishing houses in New York, and now I think we're down to 3, possibly 2. That means that now there's only a very limited supply of voices. I remember when a book that was written about Tibet back in the 90s, I think it was 1996, 1997, where that book was all set to go. And then a certain man, I won't bring it up here, bought that publishing house, and that book was squelched. She was married to a woman from China with some influences in that government. And so it was squelched. That book was never published. Today, if Jack Kerouac submitted his manuscript, The Road, it would not be published. Today, Anais Nin, if she published Delta of Venus, it would never be published. And the reason why she was published, just so you know, is she was actually printing her own manuscript by hand in New York City when, I forgot the guy's name, who was a big influence in that timeline. But anyway, he came across, because she was going to the cocktail parties in the 70s, right? Late 60s, early 70s, and was enamored by her and her stories, her erotic stories, and she was published. The Tropic of Cancer by Henry Miller. If you watch the movie Henry and June, there's some stories that she was involved in the publishing of his book, Tropic of Cancer. So in some sense, we've always had who you know is important, 6 degrees of separation, but in some sense also who you knew were still in the trenches of, you know, the 99%. And so people were helping each other, like the salons of art, like Picasso, Modigliani, some other names I can't remember, would get together at cafes, bistros, and talk about art. And not always supporting each other, but certainly supporting each other, like Salvador Dali. And they were more or less, hey, I know a publishing house. Hey, I know a movie maker who's looking for an actor, actress. So it's always been there, but now it's become absolutely egregious because now it's not even about the 99% artists, the great minds, the great scientists sitting together trying to help each other. Now it really is, you have no fucking chance. I'm just going to be honest. You have no chance unless you promote yourself through these apps. When you get on these apps and you're a visual artist, there are writers who have actually literally sold out of their books by selling it directly from them, literally their couch to you directly. But honestly, if they were trying to get published, it would never happen. Now, publishing houses want to know that you've sold 10,000 copies, to give for an example. But what do you do as an actor? What do you do as a screenwriter? And nepotism is real. And nepotism is getting harder and harder to ignore because we are now seeing the ravages of this consciousness that will just hand a position to people who have no fucking understanding. And that's the point. That's why they've been handed those positions, so that they do exactly what they're told. That's the point. Okay? So it's affecting journalism, authors, artists of all kinds. And we are literally a culture that should be by the brightest and most amazing thinkers and creative minds is collapsing. There's no promotion. There used to be the National Endowment for the Arts for individual artists. And it was kind of, attacked by a photographer, again, can't remember his name, but that would have been in the 80s, who was taking photographs of gay male in the nude, okay? And after that, the National Endowment collapsed into only giving money to nonprofit and to groups thereafter. But we used to believe in the individual right to exist and to create. And financially, we used to support that. So even though there was nepotism here and there was still the opportunity for a great thinker, a great creative person to rise out of the ashes and show himself or herself for their talents. And now more and more what I'm seeing is, and it's obvious, because I'm sitting here watching this girl with these glasses, whatever. I mean, I wear glasses. That's not the point of it. But she looks uncomfortable in her skin, and she's representing a big news channel, interviewing an influencer, content creator, and she looks like a fucking idiot. She looks uncomfortable. She's not asking the right questions. Her body language looks like she's 12 years old. I'm not kidding. And there's no fucking way there weren't 20 people better than her with the eye of the tiger, the eye of that art piece that you're seeing right here. The kind of, and to the point where there was a reporter, again, forgot her name, at the YT house, and asked Emperor Nero about a question with his little little friend with his little outfit. It's funny how we put down people on how they dress, and then it's weird. Some of the shit that's so inappropriate, him calling another woman shut up piggy, and things of that nature that's going on, and that's being normalized. You understand? Our children your children, not mine, but children are hearing this, and you don't think this is where education starts with parents. But all of them are Nepo. Most of them must be Nepo babies, because I'm not being funny when I say that, because when that was said, none of the reporters said anything. None of her colleagues said anything. So this other woman who's a powerhouse, and it's weird to me. To me, the concept of journalism equals powerhouse. It shouldn't be like, oh yeah, you're journalism and you're just kicking rocks and walking around like, I'll just ask the questions that are approved by the YT House, and I'm not going to say anything that's going to shake the tree. I'm not going to shake the tree. And that's insane. That's actually, so this woman stood up and everyone was impressed. Oh my God, she's an amazing, no, I would say, no, she's not an amazing journalist. She's what journalists used to be. Okay? There was a time, if you go back into the 1960s and 70s, look at how journalists used to interview people. I never liked Barbara Walters, but fuck, at least she would ask the hard questions. Okay? Ted Koppel, Peter Jennings, these guys would ask hard, fucking uncomfortable questions before the circle closed in and shut everyone down and told everyone what to read, what to say, to the point where there's a content creator about 15, 20 years ago who shows reporters from all over the country saying the exact same fucking sentence. And it's like a pastiche. Same thing, again and again, same exact sentence. So something's happened where we are taking the more de-evolved, the lobotomized people and putting them on pedestals while we lose some of the great minds. We're losing Plato, Socrates, we're losing Sappho, we're losing Einstein, we're losing Nikola Tesla, we're losing Henry Miller, we're losing Hemingways, we're losing people. Because here's the thing, we're losing Mozart. We're losing Mozart. And if any of you have seen the movie Amadeus, if it's even one fraction of what happened to him, he ends up in a potter's grave. He's suffering for his work, and he's brilliant. So this is where we're at as a society. And culture defines a people. Civilization is, as I said before, is the boot on your face. That's what they call us, to be civilized. And I did a whole live on that regarding how we treated the indigenous people, calling them savages, while we came in as savages to annihilate a people. If that's called civilized, I've never wanted any part of it. But culture, see now, culture and Western culture is being destroyed by nepotism. And this is something that you all and I am responsible for. In other words, don't be so quick to buy a New York Times bestseller book. Don't be so quick. Because that was literally put in front of you, and that book may not be as good as a book that's being self-published. And I say this from experience. There was a book called Corporate Secrets of Attila the Hun. I kid you not. It's a very well-known book. It came out in the 80s. The guy self-published and sold it out of the trunk of his car. Okay? And when it hit 100,000 copies sold is when he got the publishing deal. Okay? So I know for a fact that some of the best book you'll ever read, some of the most, in fact, there's an author, scholar, Margaret Rigliosini, I'll give her credit, who, PhD, she's got a doctorate, has been doing a whole series on Mother Mary and Mary of Magdalene, but mostly her concentration is on Mother Mary and Parthenogenesis. I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but what it is about is the Immaculate Conception that was created by the ancient goddesses and temples that women actually did, through meditation, clearing of their womb, would actually be able to give birth without the seed of a man. This is ancient. And she had to self-publish until she got a deal, because I have her first copies. But we could have lost her. We could have lost her. We could have lost, and my question is, who else are we losing? You know what I'm saying? So that this is a problem. So I don't want you to be disheartened. If you're a creator If you are an artist of any level, you know, whether you're a dancer or whatever, right? Musician, writer of music, writer of words, whatever alchemy that you create, the magic, I want you to stop thinking that you're not good enough. You have to understand that there is a wall the size that you can't even fathom. And that your only way to make it is to create videos that explain who you are and what you're creating and why you're creating it, and keep doing that. Let the 99% support you. My brother said a long time ago that all you need is 1,000 true fans. That's all you need is 1,000. And you have 8 billion people. All you need is 1,000 true fans that love what you do and absolutely will support you. You can actually make a living on just those 1,000 fans. They just adore you. Whatever you put out, they'll buy. And that's what you need to, that's all you need. And eventually it'll spread to 10,000 fans, and eventually 100,000 fans. And that's really it. That's all you need. But to try to fight this machine that anoints untalented people, that suddenly a book is a bestseller and you're like, what the fuck? And I'm going to actually call it out. Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, basically he stole Holy Blood, Holy Grail's whole premise and fictionalized it and then sold it. It was a bestseller. And I don't think he ever gave credit. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. But I don't think he gave credit to where he found this information. And then Holy Blood, Holy Grail, eventually people who had read the book in the 90s, right? Eventually came out saying, wait, hang on. Hang on, dude. Yeah, you didn't come up with this shit. This was studied by two authors, right? And they're the ones that put it together. What are you doing? So, but still, you know, the ball rolled. And ultimately, I know of many artists, well, not that many, but like maybe 2 or 3, definitely 2, who literally paint, they're painters, and they paint their work on video, right? And before some of the paint is dry, they sell their work and they make a living. They pay the rent that way. So try to support the unknown. Stop going for the okie doke, the New York Times bestseller list, the this and that award-winning bullshit. Because honestly, anything that's highly intelligent, there's a guy who's trying to sell his book on, I think it's about gay couples, but it's done for children. So people, you know, so kids can understand that there's different ways to love, which I don't think is wrong at all. Because I know of some of my friends who are gay who said they knew when they were like 4 or 5 or 6 that they just did not like girls. And it just became more obvious to them, okay? And kids need an out. They need to know that it's okay, that you're fine. There's nothing abnormal about you. But anyway, he sold like something like, I'm just going to make it up, 500 copies. And the minute they realized what it was about, they basically returned all his books. And he went to the public, I believe on TikTok, and basically he wasn't crying poor mouth. He was just saying, I need your support. You know, so if you have the money to buy local, to buy from local artists, pottery makers, a self-published book, most writers on a self-published book do not make money. Amazon, many of us who are self-published on Amazon, we don't get the money you think at all. You'll be lucky to ever see that money land in your account, so you know. But what you are doing is helping people know that their efforts to write or to create a piece of art, whether it's a shaman drum that's been hand painted, whatever the hell it is, like try to turn your attention to people who sell on Etsy, who create. Try to look on TikTok for self-published books. Try to go out of your way and don't go for the okie doke. Stop buying those bestsellers unless they're there on a self-help level and you really think you can get something out of it. But you have so many content creators, you have so many beautiful voices out there that without you, they would actually hide themselves thinking what I say means nothing. You understand? It's nepotism is going to harm us if we allow it. And you don't have to fight against the machine. That's not the point. You turn your back to it. You turn your back to the machine, telling you that this is what is talented, this is what you should buy, this is what you should consume, and this is all there is. And that means it'll take more effort on your part to actually seek talent. Don't buy art because you think it's an investment. I remember doing an 18-minute spoken word on art at the Ice House in LA, okay? And I connected the concept that people are willing to spend $2,000, $1,200, whatever the fuck it is, on a couch that it will have no value. The minute you put in your house and the minute you sit on it, it's devalued immediately. But that people look at art, visual art, and will kick rocks going, well, it's $1,200, well, it's $2,000. Like, and bemoan the fact that, well, I'm not sure. I mean, is it an investment? Will it go up in value? Can I tell you that every art piece I've ever bought has gone up in value? There's a particular woman who I buy all my shaman, or I used to buy all my shaman's drum for, because I have too many shaman drums. I'm going to sell some of them soon for Christmas. But I bought one of her paintings, tiny little painting for $400 as a Christmas gift to me and my family, so forth. It's now worth $1,200. But did I buy it because I knew that it would be worth it? No, I love the piece so much. And now her drums, by the way, go for like $700-800. When I bought her drums, they were like $400. So those were my Birkin bags. My shaman drums are my Birkin bags. Okay, I won't buy Hermes. I won't buy Chanel, but I will buy a drum. I will buy an art piece that is an original on my wall. And whether or not it goes up in value is none of my concern. I just smile when I look at it on the wall. It makes me happy. And so that's what I want you to be comfortable with, is seeking talent, going out of your way. If somebody's doing an ad on TikTok, for example, or YouTube, by some weird chance, and you see them peddling their book on Kickstarter or whatever, please, tarot cards, whatever, right? Please support them. They need your support. They need to pay the rent or mortgage. They need your help. Go out of your way and do that, because I'm realizing that the bestsellers that are coming down the pike are from maybe 2 publishers in the US or 3, and a couple publishing houses in the UK. And I'm not seeing what I need to see. The author of The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest came out of, I believe, Amsterdam, Denmark. And it's an incredible, brilliant book about a young girl who's been abused and who becomes a hacker and who becomes a baddie, a badass bitch, and written by a man. And it's a miracle we fucking ever got those books in this country. And by the way, most of you have probably never read it. And most of you probably have never seen the movies, because he did a series on this girl, written by a man. Had he tried to send the manuscripts to this country, I can tell you it would have never been published. The fact that it became a bestseller in Europe, and there is in January of every year there's the London book fair, where writers, agents, publishers from all over the world get together and sell books to be translated to another language. That if it wasn't for that, we probably would have never gotten the opportunity to, for example, see the movie or read the books on, for example, the author of The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, for example. I doubt it. I really do. And yet it's a brilliant book. Layer Cake, written by some British dude, wrote some other books before that. And the way he talks, the way he writes, it's like a guy narrating that's a thug, who's a dealer of illicit shit. And the cadence, the rhythm of how he writes is absolutely fucking brilliant. J.K. Rowling's, the reason why she got published was because the publisher gave the manuscript to his 8-year-old, who came back and said, "Where's the rest?" And so the first the first printing was only 500 copies of Harry Potter. 500 copies. And you know the rest. So my point to you is we have to really realize that had that little 8-year-old not been given that 3 chapters or whatever, we would not have had the Harry Potter magic that came across us. And whatever you think about her politically or socially or whatever the fuck your opinions are, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a woman who wrote something that changed the way people read her books. In other words, it was so popular that they had a child's cover and they had an adult cover. In other words, adults could read it and it didn't look like a child's book. They did special covers for the adult market as well, believe it or not. So, you know, Anne Rice, when she did Interview with the Vampire in the 1970s, I think it was 1976 or thereabouts, we still had about 15 publishing houses in New York City. And you could still get published. Today, like I said, I wonder if you put Anne Rice Interview with the Vampire with a different name, John Doe, whatever, would it get published? Do they even know, would they even recognize that this was just a social experiment? We got some idiots being hired in these publishing houses, I'll tell you that. And we are doing in Hollywood, how many fucking times do we need to do Wuthering Heights or Emma by Jane Austen or any Jane Austen fucking book? How many times do we need? I'm excited about Dracula coming out, don't get me wrong, but how many fucking Draculas are we going to have in the can? And the reason why they're doing remakes again and again, that's why they did Gladiator 2, which was a fucking mistake, in my opinion. It was a slop. Is because they're not allowing screenwriters with the eye of the tiger, with the savagery. When Rocky was made, when Sylvester Stallone sat down to write the screenplay of Rocky, which I think he wrote in 2 weeks. I swear to God, 2 fucking weeks. His rent was due. He was going to sell his dog that was a purebred, forgot the breed of the dog, whatever. And he sat down and fucking wrote Rocky in 2 weeks, the screenplay. This is when LA and Hollywood was still fucking somehow moving and looking for talent. Today, I know for a fact we have piles of screenplays not fucking read. And instead, nepotism takes the fucking torch. Mel Gibson found the screenplay of Braveheart in an office, okay, in a studio, one of those big, I don't know if it was MGM, I don't know if it was Paramount, I have no idea which, but anyway, he had an office there in the 90s and found the screenplay in a drawer that had been sitting there for like 10 years. And he made it, Braveheart. Okay, so we have a problem with talent. We are not actually really taking it seriously in Hollywood. Hollywood is a joke. That's why some of the stories coming out of Europe and other parts of the world are getting more and more interesting because they're fucking original stories. So nepotism is killing our culture. That's the live. That's all I gotta say. This is why you see this eye of the tiger, this man with this fierce look, because you have to have a shamanic warrior energy. Like there's this book called The Cosmic Mother that's coming out by this Swedish author who died, I believe, in 2005 or 2006 in poverty. And this book is literally going viral in TikTok. The Cosmic Mother, it's called, thereabouts. If you want a whole title and the author, just message me. But anyway, and she's writing the book. It's a masterpiece. It's a fucking masterpiece. And she, for almost 10 years, lives in New Mexico on a bicycle. We're talking about 20 miles on a bicycle to get groceries, to take care of her kids. And eventually she's homeless for 13 months. None of which any of the people peddling her books, by the way, are saying. But that's kind of a relevant part of her story, which makes her book that much more important to me. And why am I saying that? Well, because she couldn't get fucking arrested. She was writing this masterpiece and had absolutely no cultural, society to go to say, hey, I'm writing this project. Here are the first three chapters, and I think it's important. It's important for women to read this. Can I have a stipend? No, you have to fucking apply for awards. Do you know why most literary winners aren't as brilliant as you think? It's because no one is applying that has fucking balls, because we all know the bullshit. Because they don't want to hear raw shit. They don't. Okay? The Basketball Diaries by Jim Carroll, I doubt would ever be published today. And it's raw as fuck. It's raw, it's painful, it's gritty, it's ugly, it's sticky. Yeah. And it's about a teenage boy being used who's hooked on horse. And he was a great poet. I don't even know if he's still alive, but he had addiction problems. You read it, you know why. So, when you realize that more and more we're getting away from good storytelling, and storytelling is culture. It's what keeps us together. Some of the old bards, the old storytellers from the Celtic Isles to Africa, to Asia, to India, it goes on and on, to the Native American tribes who spoke around bonfires, telling stories, sharing stories and laughs. It is what binds us and bonds us to each other as human beings. It's what gives us wisdom and ways out of situations. And we're losing, and we're retelling and repackaging the same fucking stories because of nepotism, because they refuse to let people come in with new blood, with hard, incredible, passionate, furious, savage voices that speak of what people are going through. Here's a story. How about making a movie about the author of, sorry, I forgot her name, of Cosmic Mother? How about that? Because that's a story. That's a story I want to see. Of a woman struggling to write a masterpiece, and basically she never gets recognition until long after she's gone. Are we supposed to normalize this shit? What about the author of Myths of Avalon? Marion Bradley Zimmer, or Zimmer Bradley, whatever. What about her? She's writing her masterpieces, and basically her books really don't take off. I think Anne Rice is the only one who actually, broke the mold. I remember when in the 80s, I would take the Judah from Coal Valley all the way to my destination, Pier 39. And on the trolley, on the metro, everyone was reading Interview with a Vampire by Anne. Everybody. And that's like the mid 80s. Everybody. And that's why it became popular. There was a time when musicians were for real. You had to be talented to get a record contract. And then it turned into you had to have a beautiful face to get a record contract. Your talent would be manipulated. What mattered is your face. MTV generation. So my point is that you have the ability as a creative force that is so important to the planet. I don't care if no one fucking knows you. I don't care if you've got 2 people following you. It's time for you to get on stage and to promote your work. Like every blue moon, and I have a hard time promoting myself, and I totally understand that. And what I mean by that, I have a hard time promoting my book Recall. I have a very hard time doing it because, for multiple reasons. But one of the main reasons is that I can't hide behind the fact that it isn't my work. It's easy to promote other people's work. I love promoting other people. I love nothing better. But to promote one's work, I understand how hard it is, but you're going to have to do it. My work in my book Recall is difficult for me to read passages because the erotic, the level of eroticism in it that is absolutely politically incorrect in the book is hard to kind of, and when I read pedestrian pages, because there's moments of pedestrian, life, just a day in the life for a moment, because, you can't just always be in bed fucking, but you have to look at some of the context is, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to talk about it really. But what I will say to you is that whatever it is that you're writing, creating, try to get out of your own way and promote it. Here I am saying that, there is a reason why you were given the talent. And I go back to Mozart in the movie Amadeus, when Salieri doesn't understand why he has the hunger to create music, and yet he has absolutely no fucking talent. He's got pedestrian talent. And look at it. He's kissed enough ass. He's kissed enough ass to go up the ranks to be the monarch's composer. And he has absolutely fucking no talent. And he knows it. And he hates Mozart because Mozart basically is a genius. And look at what happens. But nepotism has become much more nefarious, in my opinion, much more nefarious than it ever was, even in that timeline. So that's why we were given the ability to get on Facebook, which I don't like. I hate Facebook. Instagram, hate that one too. You've got TikTok, you've got YouTube, you've got other apps. Rumble, for example, and Substack for another example. And I would say just do it. Just go ahead and promote yourself. And do what you need to do. I'm actually, because I'm linked, I'm going to give you some advice. It would be better for you not to, if you're a writer, not to go to Amazon because it's a joke. There are tons. My original publisher of my book has said herself that she can't get like 8 writers to come for a lawsuit against them because of the fact that the books are sold and no money ever hits the account. I'm just being honest. So it would be best, and I'm thinking of doing that myself, when I have the time, to do a Kickstarter to rebrand my book. So I self-publish, meaning I go to a printing house and I have full control of my book and it's sold on my website. Now it might raise the price by $10, but you know what? At least I'm fucking buying the book. When I bought Veda Austin's book on the language of water, because she did not have it published. Okay. She self-published it. And she sells it directly from her website. And the book, I think with tax or whatever, is $74. It's a massive book. I can see why she did it herself, because the levels of imagery and detail to the book, no publisher was ever going to fucking do it her way. There's no way. So she self-published, and yeah, it's fucking expensive, but I went ahead and bought it like a few months ago, and I will never regret the purchase of that book, because the level of brilliance, it's a massive breakthrough, but you probably don't even know who the fuck she is. Vera Austin. I believe it's Austen or IN, but it's the languages of water. And I actually did a 28-minute live reading from her book. It's on my YouTube channel, just so you know. And I'm a huge advocate of buying chapbooks and self-published poetry from poets, and things of that nature, and buying real print. Okay, be careful of artists who sell their print. Make sure it's an actual print and not a photocopy. Right? You don't want a photocopy. You want a numbered print where they pulled, say, 10 images or 20 images or 100 images, and you just bought 7 out of 100 or whatever the hell it says. Right? So I'm teaching you something. But stop buying fucking posters of Monet and Van Gogh, and stop buying fucking reproduction of art that is mass produced. If you really knew the story of Van Gogh the way I know it, you'd be disgusted, and you would never ever buy a fucking print poster of his work ever again. You would actually go and buy from an actual artist. I have a friend who paints like Chagall, if you know what I'm saying. She paints like Chagall, and here and there I've bought some of her work. And if I could buy all of it, I would. She's brilliant. But she can't get arrested. I did a whole live on culture and art and how important it is. You might want to watch it. It's on YouTube. And I talk at length about what her journey has been as a visual artist. And women are always, always, always on the fucking short end of the stick of creating art. Always. I'm always hearing stories of women trying to put bread on the table while honoring the artistic fire that burns within their hearts. Constantly. So we as women, you want to be a feminist? You want to be a real feminist? You want to really support women? Then go fucking buy art from women. Whatever it is. A book, a painting, a print, a song, a DVD, a CD, whatever. Buy it from them. I have a friend, an artist friend who's a shaman who I met when I did sacred plant stuff. And she had a CD on CD Baby or whatever. I bought it. And trust me, I was not rolling in money. But I bought it to support her, but also because it was good. It was, and I don't think she's ever sold 10,000 copies. Which is bullshit because actually her music is good. Very good. Do you understand? Good enough to be viral. But she doesn't have the energy anymore to fight against the machine. So that when my message ultimately, I guess what I'm trying to say to you is turn your back on the machine and seek these women and men out. Yes, don't purchase until you find someone who's offering something that you want. But stop buying from the machine. Do you understand? Don't buy from these big names. Don't buy from these big labels. Don't buy from these big publishing houses that somehow play golf with each other so that suddenly it's a bestseller because that guy did a review on TikTok or whatever, and now it's a national bestseller. What, do you honestly think it just organically just appeared? There are actors right now appearing out of nowhere being pushed as superstars. And they came out of nowhere. What the fuck's going on? And I know the studios, MGM, are infamous for creating quote unquote talent. But, we did have some talent coming out of those machines. Now it's just ridiculous. And nepotism, I may be using the word wrongly, obviously. But to me, if that's your cousin, if that's your friend's son, it's bullshit. Aragon, there's a book called Aragon, written by an author who was 15 at the time. He was being homeschooled, and they promoted the book in such a way, but guess what? Somebody, like the boy, I think it was like a kid that ended up buying the book at a fair. They were self-publishing it, and I read the book, and his uncle or somebody at Alfred Knopf Publishing, he gave it to his uncle to look at. And that's how Aragon was published, mass-produced. But the person, this young kid, was hustling his book at fairs as a homeschool boy. And the book landed in the lap of a good kid who said to his uncle or whoever was at Alfred Knopf, I'm just, remembering sketchy parts of it, and suddenly he had a publishing deal. I think he was 16, 17 years old, whatever, with Aragon, if you've ever read the book or seen the movie. Do you get what I'm saying? That shouldn't be happening. That should not be happening. Books need to be read. Submitted books need to be read. And honestly, you should know within the first chapter whether or not it's a good book. You should know. I mean, if you don't know, what the hell are you doing? And if you're really good as a editor, literary agent, whatever the fuck you are, you should make sure that your crew actually reads the fucking manuscripts. Because some rejections come within 24 hours, which means there's no way they read it. There's no fucking way. So self-publishing for many people is the only way. And there are a lot of people's stories that are very, very, very important. We need to hear those stories. How many times on TikTok have you scrolled on somebody's story, somebody that was dead 100 years ago, and you're like, fuck, I'd love to see that as a movie? How many times? Probably more than 10. And those stories will never be told because of the machine. We got a problem here. And our culture is created by us, the 99%, not by the 1%. And yet the 1% is making sure that our culture, our stories are not told for a reason. Control is control is control. And what it does to the artists who are rejected again and again, who are ignored, who are destroyed by it, because to be an artist means you're sensitive. You're highly sensitive, hence that's why you can create art. But your Achilles heel is you're highly sensitive and easily dissuaded by your work, by the rejection of your work. Sorry, to clarify. And that's the problem. So we as a culture, we as a people, we as starseeds reincarnated on this planet again and again and again, we need to grab it all back. All of it back. All of it. Lisa Gerard with her band, I forgot her partner, Depeche Mode. Dead Can Dance. That was their album, Dead Can Dance. I came across their album back in the 90s, their first album. And I was listening to it when you could still, fucking sample music in music stores. But it was not a music store. It was a metaphysical store. That's where they landed, out of New Zealand, in a metaphysical store in the early 90s. And here I am listening and sampling and buying, fucking blown away by their sound. Because, why? Well, they came out of New Zealand. Probably were creating their own CDs themselves. That voice, Lisa Gerard, is the voice of Gladiator with Hans Zimmer. She's the one who created the whole soundtrack with Hans Zimmer. She's that voice. She's the woman who was singing ancient Celtic sounds in a wailing that was so evocative, so heart-wrenching, that it just broke your soul into pieces and reformed it back. Natasha Atlas is another incredible indie artist who is not getting her due at all, at fucking all. If you've ever listened to her albums, Diaspora, Halim, whatever, you will you'll fall to your knees. She's featured in the last part of Kingdom of Heaven. But she's not connected. There is no nepotism here. She's not connected. And the struggles continues for these, probably not for Lisa Gerard's, but who knows? Eni is a fucking miracle. I really is. In the 90s, I think it was the last time, it was the alternative to rap. And so all kinds of artists were coming out of fucking Europe. That's why they made it. There was the alternative to rap, because rap was that's all they were fucking signing, left and right. It was just rap. Meanwhile, the alternative sounds were coming out of Europe. A melange of cultures. Buddha Bar was well known. Buddha Bar albums you could buy of all kinds of ethnic singers, musicians. So my point is, something's been lost. I would have thought we would have been way ahead of the game by now, but actually we've actually regressed. It's like a lobotomy of culture has begun by the 1%. And there's a reason for that, and it's by design. So though it should be easier, it's going to get harder unless we as a collective start saying, yeah, I'm not buying from the fucking machine. Fuck this machine. I'm buying from indie artists. I'm going to seek them out. When I go to the fair and I listen to music that I like, I'm going to buy. If I see a weaver, a basket maker, I'm going to buy her sweater, her scarf, her painting, his drums. I'm going to buy right here. I'm not buying from the machine. So hopefully I've said something of value that inspires you. And if you're an artist, that inspires you to not quit. Thank you, my love, Israelites. The Living Language of Water by Veda Austin. Thank you for saying that. There are many Language of Water books. And what was the author's name again? My herbalist teacher wrote a book, and Amazon is allowing a counterfeit to keep selling. That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Red Mama Yeti. Let me read this out loud to you, what's going on for people in Amazon. And I'm one of them. My herbalist teacher wrote a book, and Amazon is allowing a counterfeit to keep selling. and they will bump up the counterfeit above the actual writer. They did that with me. They did that with Recall. Recall was buried. If you look me up under Tony Barca, good luck. You will never find my books. Never. Never. But if I put the title of a book that is my book, then I will actually bring up everyone else. If you put my name, like Recall by Tony Barca, it will not come up. It will not come up. So that's why I'm actually looking to organize myself into putting together a Kickstarter so I can publish the book under my label and sell it directly from my website and call it a fucking day with these motherfuckers. They have been doing that for fucking years. My publisher went out of business. She was a small publisher who took Recall under her wing. She still says it's an incredible book. And I'm going to self-promote it right now. She says it's a great book. It's not for a man. Okay, it's a chick's book. What does that mean? It's about sex. It's about love. It's about a man who doesn't know how to love because it's 3,500 years BCE. And he's a warrior, not a lover. He's a warrior, not a poet. He's a warrior. It's about survival. It's about conquering. It's about stealing. It's about taking. It's about what the world used to be. Okay? And still is. It still is. But now there are digits, 1001, coding to control, to create these new conquerors who are just as bloodthirsty as they were 3,500 years ago. There's no difference. It's done without a sword now. It's done behind screens now. But it's a book I'm looking to republish. And it's on my, it's if you are seriously looking to, and again, you're not making me rich, trust me, you're not paying my mortgage, but I would love it if you read it, because it will change your mind about reincarnation, about karma, about forgiving the unforgivable, about the loops, the loosh, all of that shit. And it's the beginnings of an awakening of a couple, of a twin flame couple. It's the beginnings of them realizing who they are, who they were. It's a beginning. And my goal, if I wasn't, is to write a second piece on it. Maybe from a whole different point of view, a whole different couple. Because in my journey of working with star seeds and doing Akashic readings, as I've been doing, I'm realizing some of the stories, and I could visualize something. There's so many things I want to write, but it's like, again, in France, apparently, and I know this because one of my friends is a musician. I mentioned her name, but I won't mention it again because I don't want to put her on that situation. But in France, there's a stipend they give. It's a whole fucking living they give to musicians or to writers. In other words, you actually get paid to create. There's certain things you have to, there's a number scale that you have to hit. Okay? Whether it's how many performances you have to do in a year, whether it's how many exhibits of art you have to do, but they will give you a fucking check to create. Why aren't we doing that in this country? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's corporate America. It is not. It is by no means a culture. It's a civilization. And civilization and culture, I did a whole breakdown on the difference, which again is on YouTube. You can check it out. But do you see what she said? My herbalist friend. So she's never going to make a living selling her books. That's the problem. She never will. As long as she's through Amazon, she will never make a living. Support. So that's what I need you to do. Support your individual artists. Stop buying from the machine. We have wonderful, like there's a woman selling fucking hats. I know you know who she is. She hoodies for skiing and this and that. Wildson, right? I'll mention her. I bought 3 of her hoods because we need them. It's fucking cold up here. But they're excellent. And it's a small woman's business. Until she sells to a massive company for $100 million or whatever, I don't need any more hats, but I would say buy from her instead of Nordstrom, Macy's, the big machines, and the big fashion houses. Most fashion houses are owned by one conglomerate. Most magazines are owned by one conglomerate. It's called Condé Nast, for example. You could buy Elle, Vogue, Travel and Leisure. You get what I'm saying? It's all under one umbrella. Do you understand? Why not buy or support a free magazine? Why not write a commentary applauding this free zine or a magazine or whatever? There's a company putting out learning books, I think learning history or something like that. It's for children. And I bought, which to support them 2 years ago. And I have them actually in my library for when my son has children. Whatever, you know what I mean? But I supported them because they are trying to speak of true history that is very diverse history for children. So it's intelligent, it's heart-based, and they're trying to make a living. PBS is not part of the big machine. Like literally under the system, you think you have choice. You really don't. Love your life. Thank you, my love. Most magazines are owned by one conglomerate. That's the entire industry. Where can I get your book? I am lost. I don't understand the spiritual experience. Well, this book is fiction. I mean, it's not fiction. It's, let me explain my book. Okay. Thank you for asking me. My book Recall is based on a true story, my story. And how I meet Malik is exactly how I meet him. In 1997, I was working. It's actually, I was working for a tech company. We were going through the Y2K conversions. I was on AOL. This is when AOL was big, MSN and AOL chat. And a man by the name of Malik, it was another name, but I'm keeping it secret because, I changed the names, this and that. Malik said, "Do you believe in reincarnation?" I was like, what the hell? Usually guys would come on my page and go, "What are you wearing?" And I think you're beautiful and whatever, they'd say stupid. But this guy came up and said, "What? Do you believe in reincarnation?" And I was like, "What? Huh? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, of course I do. Yes, I do believe in reincarnation. I've had past life memories, this and that." And we started typing back and forth. And suddenly he asked me to close my eyes. And he says, Bakor, because that was my name. I had a zine called Bakor, and that was my name on this particular, and this is actually true. My name was Bakor, Bacchor, which means in Latin to run well and rebel. It's connected to the Bacchanalians, aka the Bacchus, connected to Bacchus. Okay? All right. So I close my eyes and suddenly, and the book describes the scene. Suddenly I see it and I'm fucking stunned. I'm like, how the fuck am I having a telepathic communication with a past life? And clearly the guy on the other side of this computer was my husband in that past life. Now it sounds very woohoo, but you know what? At this point, knowing why technology was invented, it was invented for many reasons, including AI, was to break open it was to hack out of the density of 3D and to open the various levels of dimensional consciousness behind the veils. So, long story short, the images evolve. And I'm blown away. And I say very limited things to him. I type back very limited things, and then he types back exactly what I saw. In other words, he tells me exactly what I look like in that past life. How the fuck did he know? That was the confirmation I needed. Now, let me go back. So to answer your question, how do you get the book? It's on my web page when you go to Sacred Womb Temple Healing. Or if you go on my link tree, it's there. It should be there on my link tree on my profile page. But it's intense. There's sacrifice. There's an ancient rite, a custom that I did not know about, that I wrote about. And then literally later, I came across the fact, there were two things that I came across that I described in my book. One was that the men who came into our kingdom were tall as the cedars. Well, apparently there was a tribe of people in ancient Mesopotamia that were over 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3", that were all light-haired, that were actually described as tall as the cedars. The other thing that I didn't know until later was that I describe a rite where women would sit on the staircases of the temple of Ishtar, and they would stay on the stairs and wait for a man to deliver them from their duty. What was the duty? To have sex with them for coins. And the coins would be delivered to the temple, to priestess. So, and I write about it. I write about how that was a must. It didn't matter who you were. You had your duty as a woman. When you were married and you had your children or whatever, you had to sit on those stairs and wait for a man, whoever it was, that gave you coins, and those coins were delivered, and you would have to subjugate yourself to his sexual desires in honor of Ishtar. I kid you not, this was a thing. And I wrote about it before I ever came across confirmation of that this was actually done. When I do Akashic readings, I will sometimes get confirmation, what I call pedestrian confirmation from a pedestrian past life. They'll show me something that's absolutely ridiculous in my point, but they'll just write it down, just give it to the client. And those supposedly unimportant past lives will actually be a massive confirmation to the massive confirmation. And why are they doing that? Well, because the starseed past lives, I'm sharing them. Some of these lives that I'm sharing with them are so intense that it's hard to believe you were once this person, this sentient being that was doing this or lived this experience or whatever it was, so that they give me something that the client can completely relate to and say, oh yeah, I totally relate to that. And literally say things like I'll give you an example. And I use this example a lot lately, but I'll share it again. I had a very weird, mundane past life where I see an African warrior with a spear and a shield running. He's just really enjoying the day. He's got 2 wives, he's got 3 sons, daughters. He's happy. He's probably in his late 30s. And he's hunting. It's probably the 1800s, thereabouts. And he's looking for prey. And suddenly out of nowhere, he gets shot in the chest. And there's a look of surprise in his face. Absolute surprise. And it's right there in the heart chakra. And that's it. And it was from a colonial, man. And I see the guy in safari gear, whatever. And he just decides to shoot him for the hell of it, for whatever. And so I tell this client, who's clearly Norwegian background, who's clearly not connected to that in any way in this incarnation. And then she says, you won't believe it, but my mother-in-law painted an African warrior in the middle of his heart chakra. There's an explosion of red colors. And she showed me the picture later on. But that confirmation, as benign as it looks, confirmed all the other heavy shit I just shared with her. And then there was a second one, which I won't bore you with. There was a second confirmation that she received from the Akashic Record Masters so that she could believe the other shit that was very intense. So she could own it. So the benign past lives weren't so much for anything else but to say, this you will relate to. And if you can relate to that, then you must know that Tony is telling you the truth. We have given her this information for you so you don't play small anymore, so you understand what you were. What you did. And that means you can't play small. Does that make sense? So going back to my book, Recall, that's exactly what happened. Malik sat back typing, and I will say this, I never saw him. I never heard his voice. One day, you'll see it in the book, how it ends is how exactly verbatim how it ends. Verbatim. I've changed the way we looked. I changed our names. I did all of that because I had to. But to be honest, the job I had was exactly the job I had. What we were doing with the Y2K conversions and how people were freaking the fuck out. Many of you weren't born, but people were freaking the fuck out during Y2K. People were literally stacking up for... if it was like Chicken Little, the sky's falling. So they were stacking up on water, food, and armament. I'm not joking. And yet for me, I was like, yeah, it's going to happen. We'll be fine. It's going to kick in. Midnight will hit. It'll be 12:01 a.m. and we will be fine in 2000. We will be fine. And So that's what the book is about. It's about the mystical, the impossible, the unforgivable, the mystical, the impossible, the unforgivable, the brutality, the pattern, the template of the warrior masculine, he's unable to love. He's unable to release his heart. He has to keep his heart in a lockbox. Because the minute his heart is fully open, he can't be a warrior anymore. He can't be a conqueror anymore. He'll want to be a farmer. He'll want a simple life. And his ego demands, is hungry to be a conqueror. Does that make sense? And how that template continues itself even today, and how it has turned our men, many of our men, into deviant, twisted examples. And in my last live, I talk about how the one where you see the Andromedan, the white skin Andromedan. In that one, I talk about how, I think, no, that's not the one. It's the one before that, where I talk about how, we've turned. Can you imagine we had such a thing called warrior monks and Knights Templars and other type of guys like that? We've turned men into celibate men, and then we turn them into warriors. That's not going to play well in the psyche of a sentient being. And eventually those samskars, those impressions, continue on into the next life, as a woman, as a man, as a woman, as a man. It continues and continues. And so recall is like the first part of an awakening, honestly, of a real awakening, of the shakeup, of the brutality, of what we're capable of doing or what we have done in past lives. The evil shit we had to do to survive as both men and women. And you'll see that. And I think for most people, to be honest, they're not ready. They're not ready for the erotic. Some people are so plugged up, blocked in sexuality. Like I'm always shocked. I just take it for granted in stride, and we are open adults. We know what the fuck's going on. And yet, no, people are blocked. They don't want to read that kind of intimacy. And the reason why I write the intimacy in 1997 and the intimacy in 3,500 years ago is because you see the contrast. You see what's changed. You see how sex is used in the ancient world as opposed to how it was used, how it's used in the 1990s, for example. How there's something more open to us, and how we were getting there. We were getting there. And then suddenly something stopped. And the fear of commitment that men have and women have. And why is that fear of commitment? Well, it's something that is a haunting from past lives, the fear of commitment. Does that make sense? In other words, if a male failed you in a past life, how would he fail you? Well, you got caught making love in the harem, and you were both, your lives were lost. You were tortured to the end of your breath. And so now, when you have sex with this man, he runs, and he doesn't know why he's running, because you're the fucking love of his life, but he's running because he knows he put you in jeopardy the last time he was with you, and he doesn't want to do it again. But he doesn't know that because he's never had hypnosis. He doesn't remember past lives. He has no idea what's making him run. And it could be that. It could be other things, of course, but I'm giving you an example, a pedestrian example to kind of... So the book Recall explores what makes people tick. And it isn't just the environment we are living in. It is the haunting, the howling of these past lives never recalled. Hence the title, Recall. So that's what the book's about. And there's sacrifice of a child. I'm just going to say it. And be prepared, because that's what people did. And that's what people still do. If you listen to David Icke, people are still doing that shit. Why do you think we have something like 450 kids a year disappearing? What the fuck? Just here alone. What the fuck's going on? What's this need for our children? And so if you're not prepared for that kind of rawness, that's not your book. Does that make sense? Hang on, let me read your comment. Yeah, so that's what the book's about, Ago. I tried looking for you on YouTube. The way you look at me on YouTube, it's right on my profile page. The link is direct. It's Sacred Intimacy Tarot, and it's right there. I'm on YouTube. You'll see it. But it is there. And if you go on my profile page on Linktree, that's why I have a Linktree. There it is. You can go directly to my YouTube channel. Or is everything ascension and being array with your twin? I didn't hear you. I'm missing the original question. Hang on. I can't understand your question, to be honest. Thank you, James, for being here. Or is everything ascension and being array with your twin? I'm going to assume this question when you say, is everything ascension and being array with your twin? No. Your main part in this incarnation is to be enough unto yourself. I say it all the time. Being enough unto yourself. Because your twin or you will die first. Typically, one of you will be gone first. And you better be enough unto yourself. If you're not enough unto yourself, what are you going to do, man? What are you going to do? You're going to be a complete fucking... you're going to be completely destroyed by the death of your twin if should you survive, and vice versa. So, the ascension is about being enough unto yourself. The ray energy going from twin flame burning karma to twin ray being of the light means that you have gone through a metamorphosis, and the first metamorphosis was being enough unto yourself, being activated, being on your mission. Mission is a life. What is a mission? Living a life of authentic passions. Authentic passions. Not what people think you should do, what you were born to do. That's passion. That's the path of the master, of self-mastery. And then Ray comes when you are both mastering yourselves, and Ray comes when you are both enough into yourself, and then you join because you're both bringing something to the table, not of codependency, but of self-empowerment. I mean, Khalil Gibran says it best in The Prophet, his book, The Prophet, on marriage. What is marriage? Make sure you are like two trees. He's not talking about being intertwined, two trunks intertwining. He talks about two trees standing next to each other where the wind may pass between us. I'm paraphrasing badly, but that's essentially what he's saying. In your book, Malik talked about how you two would have a life together at some point. Again, is that something you want? Just curious. I'm going to tell you something that I've had to struggle with that is really intense. The first thing I ask people when I do a reading is, do you believe in concurrent incarnations? What does a concurrent incarnation means? It means that our soul splits, just like that twin flames, Plato talked about it. Our soul split from one, right, with the two arms, the four arms, the four legs, to two. That's how he wrote it, okay? He wrote it to kind of explain in a pedestrian way what twins' souls were, okay? So, but we do have concurrent incarnations. Many of us, part of the reason why we deal with, I'm not being funny when I say that, fatigue, exhaustion, like beyond exhaustion, is because we are having incarnations. The reason why we deal with exhaustion is because when we sleep, we are fucking still working. That's why we wake up exhausted sometimes. Sometimes it's nutritional, lack of minerals, lack of oxygen, lack of movement of the body. I agree. But sometimes it isn't that. It is the fact that while you were dreaming, you were working, studying with your masters. I'm not kidding. So you wake up fucking like, you were somewhere and you were not sleeping, resting. Okay. Concurrent incarnation would be that I come in and then another part of me is born in another continent. Okay, another country, and he is having a concurrent incarnation. Okay. If that's true, then Malik could be Creo. You see what I'm saying? Could be the other, it's like the two faces of Janus, the god Janus, two-faced god. And it's that idea of having these experiences. And why would we do that? To gather as much data as we can to increase our ability to empathize, to walk beside a person. Because you see, many of us as starseeds, In some levels, we were too mind-based, 80% mind, 20% heart. In this planet, we are 50% mind, 50% heart. And to increase more heart coherence is to our benefit. And we don't. We don't trust the heart. We trust the mind. And the mind is controlled by the alter ego, the monkey mind, the avatar consciousness that is based on fear, anger, envy, rage, this, that, and the other, which is upholded by the outside environment and trauma during this incarnation in the very beginnings of the template being created for you, right? Template of behavior. And so when we have concurrent incarnations, which we do, then when we come back to source, we merge into our truer self parts. Why do you think we have soul retrieval guided meditations? I have one on my YouTube channel. Why do you think we have that? Well, because also pieces of our souls are lost behind on battlefields, on the rack, on the witch burning, on various ways. Pieces of us. And to retrieve pieces of us is the work, is part of the work. But also, when we are having a concurrent incarnation on, like I said, a different continent or country, when somebody dies that we love, right? And we're here holding their hand, part of us is on the other side saying, welcome home. Welcome home. A part of us. You could say our higher consciousness, our higher soul, whatever you want to call it. And these ideas of being simultaneously in various places, experiencing ourselves in various ways, is very uncomfortable. But why do you think they call us multidimensional light beings? Multidimensional. It means we're able to do that. And our little monkey mind can't even digest that. So one of the things I do know is possible is that the souls of the people I love, including my own, will merge into one. Ultimately, we merge, and we are connected, like the sequoia trees up in Northern California, right? Humboldt. Sequoia trees drink from the same root system. If you poison one root, the whole root system will collapse and die. That's us. We appear to be individual trees, and our ego can't handle it. Buddhism talks about that, the ocean of consciousness, being being a drop in the ocean of consciousness. And our egoic system still isn't ready for that incredible fact. And eventually we will. But we like incarnating. We like our individual experiences. We like the avatars we choose. We like it. We enjoy it, believe it or not. We would prefer it on higher dimensional consciousness. But we forgot our way home. We went in the woods thinking we could handle 3D, thinking we could always come back to 5D, and we fucking got lost. We never left a trail back, a red string or breadcrumbs. We never did. We just assumed that we were of such high consciousness, high level dimensional understanding that as we went deeper into the force of 3D, we would remember ourselves, and we forgot. So it was a spiritual lobotomy. And that's why this concept of concurrent incarnation, souls merging back, like Malik is Malik, but is Malik Creo? Is Malik and Creo Daniel? Of course. Maybe. And Malik would be someone I would totally say yes to. But Malik was gentle and Creo was savage. And if for some reason, and this is important to say, had the conqueror come in and was not forced, had she not been forced to be the lover of the conqueror, she would have never left Malik. They were happy. They were happy. There's nothing wrong. You see, this is why I keep talking about twin flames running and chasing, is that you realize that their marriage was perfect, and she would have never, ever left Malik. It was the outside environment, in this case, the war, the conquerors coming in to take her land and to destroy her way of life. But had that never happened, now take it to a smaller version. Your man loses his job. Your man can't find a fucking job. And he feels like he's nothing to you. And so he retreats into alcoholism, pornography, whatever the fuck he retreats into. Because he can't be here and be sober. Like he can't do this sober, this spiritual castration. And so then, you're realizing that, and I did a whole live on that too, on how men are not their wallets. Men are not their bank accounts, because we are losing good men to that ideal. And we also have twisted examples of deviant masculines who are fucking freaks, whose God is computer games and money, crypto, whatever. And they have lost the ability to be in their hearts to love a woman. It's been completely fractured. I did a whole live on that. So check out my last 4 lives to look at some of the themes I touched upon, because that's what's happening. Okay, the outside in Kate and Kat, I should call her, and Daniel in 1997. What is the environment? Poverty. Fucking poverty. Why? Because they're not stupid. Why are they dealing with? Because there's no jobs. There's like they're working, they're hustling, they're surviving, keeping their heads above water. That is not life. That is not life. And eventually, when you're the frog paddling in the butter, right, in the milk to make hopefully butter, if you're lucky, you'll eventually be able to jump out of the pail. But if you're tired, if you're getting older now, I mean, I remember seeing a man who was very, very old. He looked like he was fucking 90 years. I think he was 90 years old, thereabouts, greeting people at Nordstrom, standing 6 hours a day, greeting people in Nordstrom, bent over, because Social Security is not cutting it. But then you have Ben Shapiro, little Ben Shapiro, who thinks that people should not retire, that they should keep working until they're 70, the piece of shit. He's a piece of shit. So I know I'm going on tangents, but environment destroys some of the greatest minds I've ever seen. I've seen good people destroyed. One of them is my twin, honestly. I'm going to be very upfront. My twin was destroyed by an environment that was normalized. He was being molested by fucking nuns. That's it. I'm just going to say it. At the age of 8, 9, 1957, thereabout, 1956, when no one spoke about sex or inappropriate touch. No one. They all assumed that if you were a preacher or a nun or a monsignor or whatever the fuck you were, that you were good. That you were a good person, that you would know not to harm children. And clearly, here we are, knowing better. So that created addiction in him. In a world that did not discuss this. And that's savage. That will destroy, fracture a human being so that they have multiple personalities, different personalities, the personality when they're high, the personality when they're straight, the personality when, do you understand what I'm saying? It creates addiction to escape the haunting howling of those flashback memories that seem to happen in our 30s. So when I tell you that the environment is the reason why you're not in union with your twin, whether you're living under the same roof or not, I'm not fucking overstating that. It's a fucking fact. And what I'm getting pissed about with these little fucking motherfucking coaches, and I'll call them out, is that none of them are saying that. None of them are saying that. They're doing the mirror work. It's your mirror. You got to look at why your twin's doing that. It's your mirror. No, it's the fucking infrastructure, motherfucker, because most of us would have never left our situation had we been safe and in an environment that was safe. What does that mean, safe? Not being conquered, not being fucked with, being able to live your life that like you want, not losing your house that's worth $800,000 because you didn't pay the fucking property tax of $2,000. This is happening to people. What do you think it would do to a human being? Do you think they want to have sex with you and be with you? Do you think they feel worthy when they step in dog shit, not sometimes not even to their own fault? And then eventually, yeah, they start actually creating behaviors where they're self-destructive, clearly. But how did it start? Do you think we come in fractured as souls? I don't think so. Every time we die, we get this incredible time to fucking heal. And we get all excited about the next life and we think, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And we come back in forgetting fucking everything's wiped clean. For many of you, some of us were born remembering. But you know what? Some of us were born remembering at a time when no one fucking remembered. Imagine that fuckery. That's fucked up because you know shit and everyone around you normalizes mediocrity, but you know shit and you're trying to put it into words, but everyone around you thinks you're strange. Lynn Andrews, I was talking to a friend of mine about Lynn Andrews, who wrote Jaguar Woman, Shikai Woman, all kinds of books. She was a shaman. Blonde hair, blue-eyed. Opalescent eyes. Could see auras. She realized at the age of 6 that people couldn't see auras, but she could. And she had to stop telling people. Because not only were her eyes unusual, I've never seen eyes like that in my life. Opalescent eyes. I kid you not. You know how opals look, right? Pale blue opals, that's how her eyes looked. They completely shifted. Yes, with pinks, with greens. It was weird in a beautiful way. Weird in a good way, in my opinion. But the point is, by the time she's 6, 7 years old, I heard her talk. I went to her book signing for Shikai Woman in Pasadena, California, in the bookstore called Alexandria 2, right on Lake Street. So here I am meeting her. I'm like 31. And she's talking about that. How to see auras was not, so she shut it all down. She didn't shut it down to herself, but to other people. She hid it. She hid her knowing. And I don't know how good that is for a person to do, honestly. I don't think we can afford to do that to our children today. But as long as we are having the 1% destroy our cultures, storytelling, art, and so forth, you know what I'm saying? We're going to forget. Right now, I'm reading, I read a lot. I read different things. I have an ADHD brain with an appetite of a lion, okay? And I read, right now I'm going to be delving into ancient Druidic mythology. The ancient Druid tales. And to be honest with you, some of it is going to have to be downloaded from mythology. The ancient Druid tales. And to be honest with you, some of it is going to have to be downloaded from many of what we knew when we lived in the Celtic Isles and Gaul, ancient France, Gaul, and when we had Druids and Druidesses, and some of the Celtic Isles and Gaul, ancient France, Gaul, and when we had Druids and Druidesses, and some of these stories was the Romans, and then it was the Catholics. So we have about 1,000 to probably 10,000 years of culture that we don't remember, and that has been destroyed because it was all of these stories. And this is known. Buddhism was verbal for 500 years until it was written. Christianity, Yeshua, most of it was verbal until they finally wrote it. I think 100 years later. Or I correct me if I'm wrong. Whatever. But and this goes with Native American culture. This goes with all cultures. It's always been verbal, including the Vedas. The Vedas, they didn't start writing shit down for like 500 years later, if I'm correct. Thereabouts, okay? So it was all verbal, okay? So the problem is with the slaughtering of these incredible, majestic souls that were here on this planet, who knew shit, magical shit, that we can't even, we're just scratching this, and I mean that, scratching the surface. Many of you will have to download it. This is where Akashic readers like myself are important, to find out what do we lose here? What happened here? What do we need to remember? And that is culture, my friends. I mean, I don't know what people think when I do an Akashic reading on a human being that was a starseed first before they were ever what I call an earthling, right? That is culture. That is the culture of your soul. That is what your soul went through. And in that, we merge our stories to become a culture of our consciousness, of our collective consciousness as starseed tribe members. And all of these things need to be recaptured and reclaimed through written word in this case. And it's weird because I've been feeling an urgency for 2 years now, for 3 years. And I was talking to a young man who was put, he had to do a psych hold. I forgot what the number is because I don't know, but a 72-hour hold or whatever. And because he had a breakdown, and he had a breakdown because of our fucking current system. I'm sorry. Our current system is filled with idiots who believe in the 3D matrix. And meanwhile, a person like that would fucking lose it. Fucking lose their, fuck that. It's almost like you're holding onto a ledge and you're like, fuck it, I'm giving up. I'm just going to let go of that ledge. Fuck this. And they collapse into a nervous breakdown. There are books. There was a book, I wish the fuck I remembered it. I wish I'd paid attention more. Written by a psychiatrist about shamanism and mysticism and how we see these people today as opposed to how we saw them, 2,000 years ago. So we're and then we're using happy pills to lobotomize them chemically. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I had a friend who could actually telepathically, she wasn't crazy. She could telepathically hear people's thoughts, swear to God. And if you watch the movie, once again, I'll mention it, you know what I'm going to go, about remote viewing, Men Who Stare at Goats with George Clooney, Men Who Stare at Goats. If you see that the CI, you get it, they're not starting this to fucking waste anyone's time. They're starting this because there's power there. And anyway, my friend ended up taking happy pills to lobotomize that power instead of going to an institute to learn how to fucking master it. We don't have institutes to master it. We don't have psychic institutes. We should have a psychic institute in every major city. Do you know this? Like, do you think that's crazy what I'm saying? That we should have a psychic institute in every major city where we are teaching our children, we're teaching ourselves how to master it? Well, why don't you think they've done that? Well, because you'd be too dangerous, my friend. Obviously. You'd be too dangerous. And imagine an army of us having that kind of, thank you, 5150, thank you. Does that make sense? Do you get where I'm coming from here? I'm talking about culture. I started with art. I started about us turning our backs to the machine. Do you realize that we should have training facilities that are not controlled by any GOV? None. Okay? No 1%'s hands are on that shit. We have real druids. There's almost a level of, in other words, we're not swimming in money, but fuck, we have an institute. Come on in. Your kid's brilliant? Okay, let's test him. Let's teach this kid at the age of 6 how to fucking master this shit. They're having nightmares. They're being chased by men in black. Oh, I know that story. Let's train the kid to know how to protect. Let's train you, mama bear, papa bear, on how to set the stage in their bedroom so they're not attacked while they're sleeping. Because you see, we know that it's a child, but this is a powerful soul in a child's body, and they must be important, or else they wouldn't be attacked like that in their sleep. What's the best thing you can do with a human being as you create a fractured template? You fucking instill fear. And what's the best way to do it? Through sleep. So if we had psychic institutes, do you think you would be living the kind of system that you're living in today? Do you really think we would be living like this? Absolutely fucking not. One generation would fucking catapult this shit into 5D. One generation. So instead of having institutes, we have to do it like what the Cathars did. Meet secretly and create environments where people bring their kids and we do Zoom calls and we train and we teach. Does that make sense? And yes, you pay for it. You know why? Because all of these teachers have rent to pay and mortgages to pay and bills to pay in the current infrastructure we live in. That's right. So it's quite an interesting thing. Can you please tell me again what the name of your book? Oh, your book. My book is called. Thank you, Julianne. I caution you. Okay. Red tape all over that. Okay. But it's called Recall, and it's on my link tree on my profile page, or you can go to my website, which is also on my link tree, and it actually is the first thing. When you see it, it'll have a pop-up box that takes you directly to my Amazon page to buy the book Recall. But it's a hard book in terms of what it describes. And if you have sexual hang-ups of any kind, maybe you've been in any way, I caution you. There are people that come to me about hypnotherapy, and if I think it's going to be good for them, I say yes. If I think it's not a good idea, not yet, I say no. I don't just sell to sell, because I don't want to have karmic entanglement with you as a soul, any of you, whether it's buying my book or not, or whatever, or hiring me to do an Akashic reading. And that's why I do pre-calls to make sure that you're ready. Like I had a potential client who did an Akashic reading with someone else. She had done it a week previous, and I spoke to her. And I didn't understand why she wanted to do an Akashic reading with me. Do I need the money? You fucking ain't right. I need the money, but this is not me trying to say what a great person I am. Let me explain to you the bare minimum of my philosophy in this incarnation. I do not want to be karmically entangled to anyone. That means I will never tell you to do something I think, and I know in my soul it's not a good idea for you. You understand? It's not even me being such a great person walking on water. I want to get into 5D. And 5D is more important to me than you paying me for the service. So when somebody comes to me and I know they're ready, I'm fucking over the moon. I'm so excited. Like, I can't wait to do it, right? And I get to pay my bills. But do you understand? Like, I'm over the moon. I'm so excited. Like, I can't wait to do it, right? And I get to pay my bills. But do you understand? Like, I'm being candid with you about how I feel about this journey. This is my last rodeo in 3D, and I will not fucking do anything to prevent that because of whatever. I won't do it. So even though I would love to have 10,000 copies sold on Recall, for example, I realize also that it isn't for everyone. So I caution you. So again, maybe listen to this live when I mention the book, and before you buy it, because I want to make sure. And it's not ugly in that way, not in my opinion. There's a threesome, and it's about a power struggle, and it's about what she has to do to survive. And it really brings you back to what women use sex for. Sure, they found pleasure in it. Of course they did. But they also, that was their sword and shield for many women, was sex. And that's a template we're still playing with today. You understand? Why do you think we have sugar babies? Why do you think we have OnlyFans? Why do you think we have high-class hookers? Because that is still an ancient template being played out. And these templates need to be transmuted into something higher. Does that make sense? So for me, when I wrote the book, I'm aware of these things. Anyway, can you please, okay, so I told you the book, so Recall, it's on my link tree. Any other questions? I want to thank you for being here. And let me ask you a question. Something's asking me to ask you this. I know this is AI. This is an AI image. We know this, right? But when you look at his eyes, what do you see? I'm really interested in seeing what you see. What do you see in his eyes? And I don't want to influence you because I'll go after you. What do you see in his eyes? What do you see in his eyes? Please comment. What do you see in his eyes when you see his eyes? Soul basement. What does that mean? Soul basement. What does that mean? What do you see in his eyes? Any other comments? Thank you, Cosmic Canary. I'm not sure what you mean by soul basement. Worry. Okay, good. Who else? Who sees? What else do you see? What do you see in his eyes? Anything else? All right. Sadness. Okay, good. That's excellent. So what I see in his eyes is power, fierceness, and fear. Power, fierceness, and fear. Oh, thank you. Driving well. Thank you. Yeah, but I also see fear, which you could interpret as sadness. You see? And so all of these emotions, which I'm amazed that AI would be able to transmute in this moment, because talk about capturing a soul that doesn't exist in this face through AI, I'm not kidding, is mind-blowing to me. But what's interesting and what's important for you is to realize that it's okay to have all these colliding emotions riddle through you and still accomplish what you were born to do in this incarnation. All of this is normal. All of these emotions are normal. And yet you still accomplish your life. Your authentic life. Not the life your parents want you to have. Not the life the society, your country, your culture wants you to have. But what you're supposed to have. Deep emotional depth. Yeah. So I want you to know that. That in this incarnation, you are going to be feeling all of this and more. You're going to feel that you're not enough. You're going to feel that you're failing. You're going to feel, but the thing is, you got to keep going. You got to keep it moving. You got to keep it moving until your last breath. And that is an authentic life. Okay. That's what I want you to know. And we, as the 99%, we need to support each other in any way we can, in every aspect of the changes that we are demanding. And what we are seeing right now is the barbarism, the slaughter, the forced starvations of people, forced by design. The Irish potato famine was by design. Queen Victoria was fully aware that the Irish people were dying by the millions, 4 million, from what my Irish friend has told me, if I remember correctly. And Queen Victoria, a woman who led her country, did that to children while they were taking all the food from Ireland and putting it on ships to export. There was plenty of food in Ireland. Plenty. But it wasn't for the Irish. By a woman leader. So there are a lot of things we need to rethink. But when we think, oh, if it was a woman, if it was a matriarchy, we would be better. No. No, it's not about your gender. It's about your power to want to protect your people, to make sure your people are safe and thriving. And it doesn't matter your gender, because let me remind you, you've been a man, you've been a woman, you've been a man, you've been a woman, you've been a good man, you've been an awful man, you've been a good woman, you've been an awful woman. And so we need to have good, honest, loving leaders. When I go to the Galactic Council, it isn't a matriarchy system. It's a co-ed system of the wisest of the wise. What they have between your legs has no business. No business. Hillary Clinton's a good example of that. Margaret Thatcher is a good example of shitty leaders who are women. Okay? So let's try to dissolve these templates. Let's bring the good men back into our circle. Let's bring the good women into our circle. Let's transmute the rest so they're not part of our frequency, and they no longer match our frequency. We don't see them, they don't see us. We're in a different dimension. And that's it, okay? All right, my loves, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so honored always to have you here and to have you share my thoughts. And hopefully some of it really hit home. And again, the book is Recall. It's on my Linktree profile. If you go on my website, it opens up as a pop-up box. If you don't find it, just let me know and I'll send you the Amazon. But if you try to find it, good luck. You never will. You'll never find it. I can't even find it. I use the link myself to find the book. That's how stupid this has gotten. And they're doing it to all indie writers. This is what they're doing to indie writers. In terms of, before I let you go, on the Cosmic Mother, what makes me sad, it makes me really sad, is that the author of the Cosmic Mother starved, struggled, was on her bicycle, pedaling 20 miles a day to get food. She was on welfare in New Mexico, in rain, in snow. And now the book's fucking taking off. And here we go, the fucking again, making someone famous when they're dead. And while they lived, they were fucking struggling. They were in fear. They were in despair. They were in depression. They were homeless, whatever the fuck. Please support them while they're alive. All right? Much love on your journey. Namaste.